Okay, let's talk about one of the best event heroes in the game, Gamora. Hello and welcome to Nelson All Over Cards. My name is Nelson and today we're diving deep and doing a review on Gamora, Thanos' daughter, sister to Nebula. Now, we just got finished playing 4 games is maybe a little bit of an overstatement. It was a couple of weeks ago. I was on vacation. I'm back, so let's talk about Gamora. Before we dive into her, if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel, it goes a long way in helping me put out more Champions content, and I really appreciate it. Gamora is named Gamora on both her alter ego and her hero side. On her alter ego side, she has one of the coolest deck building not restrictions, but the coolest deck building enablers in the game, and that's that she can include up to 6 attack and or thwart events outside of her chosen aspect. This means that she's going to be super flexible, she's going to be a jack of all trades, and she has just so much potential on how she can sculpt her deck to make it exactly what you need in order to take on the challenge that's been put in front of you. Now, we're going to talk about some of those best targets, some of the things that I like to look at to add into my deck here later in the video, but let's go ahead and continue talking about her alter ego side. She also has another action, or an action on her alter ego side that says to look at the top card of her deck. If it's an attack or thwart event, you get to add it to her hand. So you can kind of see where this is leading to. She wants to be playing attack and thwart event. She wants to be doing that. Her entire kit is built around that, and so she wants to have access to those types of cards, especially because it plays off of her hero ability. So when we flip that over, she has 2 abilities that combine with her incredibly flexible 2/2/2 stat line, which is her finesse ability. It says after she plays an attack event, you get to remove 1 threat from a scheme, and then her precision ability, which is after you play a thwarts event, you get to deal 1 damage to a enemy. Now, these are once per phase, so if you can figure out how to trigger these in the villain phase, you get to do these twice per round. Now, this just adds to her flexibility, right? So in a solo game, most of the time you're adding 1 threat to the main scheme if you're in hero form, and so a attack event can take care of that threat, allowing her to focus all of her thwarting potential on either surprise advance, allowing you to roll down, or side schemes. And then the precision ability, allowing you to deal a damage, allows you to play a thwart event, ping a tough off, deal 1 damage to knock out a guard minion or something so you can go face with the villain. The flexibility and the order of cards that she needs to play is a really satisfying puzzle and very, very good. This finesse and precision ability combos super well with a lot of her cards. She has 2 0-cost events. She has acrobatic move, which is an attack event that deals 2 damage, and then you get to trigger removing 1 threat, and then set the pace, which is remove 1 threat, and then you get the trigger dealing 1 damage. So these work really, really well. They're super valuable cards for her. 1 effective resource, just the card itself. It's 0 cost, so 2 damage and a threat removal for 1 card is good. Now combine that with a decisive blow or a forward momentum to get some major damage or threat removal. So decisive blow deals 7 damage if you've already played a thwart. Forward momentum removes 5 threat if you've already played an attack event. She wants to jump around. She wants to be doing a little bit of everything so that she can maximize some of the cards and her abilities. Now, the problem with this is you do have to have those types of cards in your same hand. So if you want to play a decisive blow, you need a thwart card in your hand, which can lead to some decisions on hanging on to some cards if you want to. So maybe you have a clear the area that could trigger a decisive blow next time, or you have a decisive blow and you don't have a thwart event. Maybe you want to hold on to that card so that you can trigger it big time next time. That's all these types of tactical decisions that Gamora forces you as the player to make. She has a really good economy for the event. She has 2 copies of Keen Instincts, which are 1-cost upgrades that allow you to exhaust to generate a wild resource for a attack or thwart event. And so right there, her economy is really strong. Once she gets built out just a little bit, she can really do pretty much anything that she wants. Now, let's talk about the sword real quick. So the sword I was harsh on in my videos, in my streams. So I was saying I pretty much never play the sword. I want to retract that a little bit. So I do think that there is a space for the sword in a solo game. Now, in a multiplayer 3-4 player game, I think you get the sword onto the table pretty much every time because it is a long payoff. So the problem with the sword, it's a 3-cost upgrade that says that whenever you play an attack event, you get to deal 1 damage to an enemy. Now, it's expensive. So if we compare this to a swinging web kick, which from Spider-Man's kick deals 8 damage for the same cost, it would need 8 attack events to be equal to the damage. Now, I would argue here that 8 instances of 1 damage is stronger than 8 damage in one single pocket, because you can spread it out. You can ping Tufts off. There's a lot of flexibility, and flexibility in Marvel Champions is strong, right? It's very, very powerful to be able to assign one copy or one instance of damage 8 times. So maybe a better comparison to this would be like a Dance of Death from Black Widow's kit, which is like a 3 for 6 damage, but it's 3 instances of damage. So still, even 6 events in order for it to pay off after you play it is a bit much. I think that is a long payoff, especially like how many times are you playing 6 attack events in a game, in a solo game? And if you are, how many times are you playing it after you've played the sword? So it is a decision that you have to make. If you draw it in your opening hand, you're going up against someone like Thanos or a Loki that have a lot of health. You're going to be sitting at the table for a long time. Yes, get it onto the table. I thought Master Mold, which is who I was going up against, which was a horrendous show in itself. It was just, I'm taking Master Mold out of my rotation because of those videos. But Master Mold was a longer game than I was expecting. I do think there were a couple of instances where the sword could have been a good play and I passed on it. However, the majority of the time as a solo player, I'm passing on that sword. It is too expensive, it takes way too long to pay off, and I would rather use that as a resource to do something that changes the game state immediately. So this is when we're going to be talking about our basic cards. I'm going to amend this to be like the basic and the aspect cards that I like to trigger when I'm building her deck. Let's talk about the basic cards first. She is Guardian traded, so all the great Guardian allies are something that you're going to be wanting to look to target to add into your Gamora decks. Incredible value, some of the stronger allies in the game, and I rarely ever run Guardian decks without at least some of those great cards or those great allies. So definitely take a look at that. And then the other one I wanted to bring up, she's a little bit squishy with her health, and so endurance is always a welcome addition to a Gamora deck. Now, I think the more interesting discussion here is what aspect cards do I like to add in outside of my chosen aspect? And so I'm going to be calling out my top 2 cards from each aspect other than leadership. Leadership does not have a lot of targets, so we're just going to ignore that one. And I'm going to talk about my top 2 cards that I like to add in. Now, I will add in other cards. These are just some of those that I go to first just because of the value that they have. So the first one, let's talk about Justice. I love Clear the Area, which is a thwart card. Remove 2 threat for one cost, and then you get to draw a card. Just incredible value there. Super inexpensive because you can draw that card and then set you up for some of those, decisive blows. Can be a really powerful card. So Clear the Area is probably the top thwart card that I would include in a Gamora deck. The other card in Justice that I love running is Concussive Blow. It's a 3-cost attack event. Deals 3 damage and then confuses an enemy. Gamora does like to flip down. She has a pretty good alter ego ability to add that top card to your deck if it's an attack or thwart event. And then also she has Danger Room, which is a good support for her in alter ego. So Confuse is always welcome in her kit. For aggression, I like looking at Dropkick. Dropkick is that 3-cost card that allows you to draw a card and stun the enemy if you pay with it for all physical resources. Once you have those Keen Instincts onto the table, this is a really kicker to meet, and so Dropkick is awesome. Also, I love Clobber here. Clobber is that 2-cost card that deals damage to an enemy. If it's the first card you've played, it pulls it back into your hand. So it's just a really efficient source of damage. And so if you're running like a Justice deck, Clobber is a great way to throw some extra damage into your deck. And then Protection, I think, has some of the cooler ways to add into Gamora's deck. These are 2 attack events. I love Momentum Shift. Momentum Shift is probably the most used card in my Gamora decks. Right, Wrong, or Indifferent. I don't think it's the best one. I just think it's a lot of fun. It's a 2-cost card that heals 2 and deals 2. And so that helps her with her fragility a little bit and allows you to stay up a little bit longer and not necessarily risk rolling down to recover. And then Hard Knocks, which is deal 4 damage to an enemy. If it does defeat an enemy, you get a tough status card. So a lot of these cards have to deal with the stun, confuse, or tough cards, which she does not have in her kit. And so adding those into her kit is always going to be good because canceling a villain activation is very, very strong, especially in solo. So those are my top. Let me know in the comments what your favorites are. There's a lot of options out there, and it is very dependent on what matchup you're going up against, right? If I'm running up against like Thanos, who has Stalwart, I'm not going to be running Dropkick, right? I can't stun him, so I'm not going to be running that card. But what are some of your favorite cards to add into Gamora? Let me know, because it's always a fun discussion. Alrighty, so let's rank the aspects in terms of least good to best, and we're going to talk about each one of these briefly. And I think of Gamora as in two camps. So two of these aspects are just way stronger than the other two, and so it's kind of a fun step function here for in terms of power level. And so the fourth place aspect is leadership. There's really not a lot to synergize with her here. She has that Guardian package, but there's not a lot of attack or thwart events in her kit. She has the Guardians, like I said, which are good, but her strength and her economy revolves around events. And so you're looking at like go all out, and that's interesting, but it's really not that great in solo. You can't really bump her stats up, and so you're going to be stuck paying a 2 cost for effectively +4 damage, and so it's not the best. And so leadership is not an aspect I look to run with Gamora. That the second one in that camp is going to be protection, so it's a similar argument to leadership, but it does have some more options. It has those momentum shifts, those hard knocks, a couple more attack or thwart events, and you can always supplement with the other aspects. However, you are limited to 6, and so protection allows you to play into that. I think some of the more interesting cards that have come out recently, like First Hit and Powerful Punch, which help you trigger her abilities in the villain phase, are interesting builds, although it's just not as good as the other two. The other two are Aggression, which is our second place. This is probably my favorite way to play her. Gamora loves to play events, and Aggression just has so many of the attack events, and so you can fill the rest out with some thwart options. So I'm looking at like clear the areas or for justice, and then you lean really heavy into those attack events, and she can do so much work, and she is so flexible, and she can space out and do whatever you want her to in Aggression, and it can get pretty nasty really quickly. And then that leads us to our best aspect for Gamora, which is Justice. It's pretty much the same argument here. Justice just has better tools to accomplish kind of the same thing. Her big damage dealers, like her Decisive Blow, combo more frequently when you add the thwart events that you have in Justice into your deck. And then you can add some dropkicks, and you pretty much have a lot of damage in her kit at that point. And then the Justice aspect, as well as her cards, have threat covered. This comes with the added benefit of allowing you to flip down to roll up with hopefully a 7 hand size and enough ways to take care of the threat that is going to be added whenever you roll down. So Justice and Gamora are so very strong together. When we look at the community rankings, we were pretty much aligned perfectly here. So they even had the same camp. So Aggression and Justice blew out the water, blew leadership and protection out of the water, and so we're right here with them on that. And then they voted her as an A tier, and kind of like an A with some B tier. I'm gonna agree with them here. I'm gonna drop her as an A tier, right between Cyclops and Phoenix. She is such a great event power hero. She can struggle against higher health minions, which, you know, keeps her from that S tier. She does not have the status effects in her kit that also keeps her from that S tier. However, the flexibility that Gamora has means that she is just an incredibly powerful solo hero. She has what you need to do in solo heroes, right? As a solo player, you need to manage every single aspect of the game, and she can do that very, very well with her finesse and precision abilities. I think Gamora is one of the more fun heroes to deck build for. She has a lot of interesting options, and she's one of those heroes that keeps getting fresher and fresher as we print more attack and event cards. So really, really cool hero. Love the deck building, love her playstyle. I think she is a lot of fun, and I'm really excited to see what she becomes in the future with an even more expanded card pool. So next up in our Hero Spotlight journey, we're going to be taking on Rogue and Gambit. So those should be coming out this week. I hope to get those on release day. We will stream those games and then do reviews for those two, and I'm excited to get some new heroes to the table. I am looking forward to Gambit more so than Rogue as a solo player. Rogue, I think, is going to shine in that multiplayer setting, but I'm also really excited to play Rogue. I hope that sounds interesting to you because I am pumped for it. And anyways, until next time, I will see you around. Thanks for watching. Peace.